Hey, everybody. You have stumbled across the verbal transform. I'm Emilie. If you would like more context about what it means to be on the verbal transform, what it is we're doing here, look in the description below for a link to another video that will give you some context. What you need to know today is that this is the first interview on the verbal transform, and we are looking at words that we use all the time and that have become a little lumpy, misshapen, maybe a little deflated from all the abuse they take. And we're going to polish them up. We're going to breathe some new life into them. And today's word is play. Here to talk to me about play is Mandy Gordon, and I will let her introduce herself.
Hi, thanks for having me, Emily. So I'm a coach. I'm a life coach. I work with individuals. I also work with individuals inside businesses and other kinds of organizations. Do some team development work, leadership development, facilitated whatever. And I come to coaching kind of late in my life after having spent many years in corporate America as a consultant. And I love it. So now I'm on a mission.
You've chosen to accept it.
Yes. To normalize play, to bring play back to adults.
So what brought you on this mission?
What a good question. I have managed to keep play alive in myself for most of my life. I think that in my 20s and 30s, maybe it got pretty dampened at times in my life when I was busy trying to prove myself or fill in the blank, whatever serious things happen to us as we get out of college and move further into adulthood. And so there was, maybe I took a break from play, but then it came back full force. And I almost feel like I don't know what the opposite of growing up is, but I'm doing that. And more embracing ways to play in my life and lightheartedness and exploring how that fuels my own work and my productivity and my relationships.
Perhaps very much on theme right now.
Yeah.
You can hear a 2-year-old reading an alphabet book to herself.
Cool.
So a little bit of ambient, inherent play happening in the background.
Yes.
And
learning, by the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lots of learning. So you've talked about already, like, as you have come to this point in your mission, about keeping play alive and kind of coming back to it after taking some time off from it.
Yeah.
What does play mean for you? What is what is it that we're missing about play?
Well, that's a really, really, really big question. I think that the first thing that pops up is that adults, and by the way, this is true based on studies that have been done, this is true in many other species besides humans. As adults take on more responsibility, they play less. They play less because they have more to do, if you will. And there are a lot of studies that show that this is not necessarily a good thing for adults. And so for me, I feel like we've kind of adulted the concept of play. And we've made it, adults tend to give it a label of, not all, but many, of being frivolous or unproductive or counterproductive or a million other things that, in fact, aren't true. Best way to say it. I mean, certainly it can be, but play, actually, there are benefits to play. They're for adults. So I don't even know what your question was, but that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, what are we missing about play? So what are these benefits that we've forgotten or never found?
Right. Oh, I'm going to answer that one too. You asked what play means for me. And I think what it means for me is a reconnection to vital parts of ourselves that still serve us in adulthood. Different ways maybe than they did in childhood, but it's a reclamation, a reconnection to certain parts of ourselves that have great value as adults in our adult lives.
Okay.
So that's the answer to the last question. And then what was the next question? You don't know anymore.
No. Let's play around and see what happens next.
Okay.
All right. So there are going to be people watching.
Yeah.
What do you want them to know right now about play? About what they could be having with play?
I think I want to start with what's present instead of play for many of us. And to do that, I want to mention a guy who's done probably more research on play than anybody. A guy named Stuart Brown, who has a book on play and also is the founder of the National Institute for Play.
Are you a member?
Pardon?
How does one become a member of that?
I don't know. I don't think you can be a member. I don't know. I don't know. Don't listen to me on that.
Okay.
We'll go with I don't know.
Excellent.
There's a lot of research that he participated. He followed around animal study people for years and has also been involved in some study of humans. And one of the things that he talks about is the fact that safety and security are closely intertwined with the idea of play. So in nature and with human beings, children are more likely to be willing to play when they feel a sense of security. In the wild, you see that when play most often occurs when there's nothing life-threatening happening. So that's the first thing that occurs to me that's missing for that's here instead of play for so many of us. As we age, we get more exposure to the world and to other people's judgment and to ideas of who we're supposed to be and cultural influences and everything else. And we start to doubt ourselves and feel more insecure. And we maybe don't want to share certain aspects of ourselves, playful aspects of ourselves, for fear of being judged by our peers.
Oh, vulnerability right there.
There you go, vulnerability. And so that is something that in the absence of play, a lot of times that's part of why there's an absence of play, because we're too worried about being judged. And the other word that comes up, so conversely, when we find the opportunity to bring play into our environments, into our relationships, in whatever form that may take, that typically creates more safety and security.
Okay.
Maybe it's incremental, maybe it's not a ton, but that is you need to have some safety to engage in play, and when you engage in play, you create more safety for yourself and others. The other thing that comes to mind for me is connection. Because even there are a million ways to play, right? Individually, in groups, whatever the case may be, competitively, there's opportunity for connection through play with ourselves in what we think, what we care about, new ideas, new parts of ourselves, whatever the case may be. And when we play in groups, it's an opportunity for us to connect with one another.
I'm hearing you describe this really powerful tool to help create safety, help know ourselves and each other better, how to work better together. And if it weren't labeled play, like, holy crap, they would like, why wouldn't we all have our fancy consultants coming in, doing this, Miss Fancy Consultant.
It's kind of like kale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, well, I don't know. People seem to balk at the word kale. I love it. I grow it. But, and it's very good for you. But many people go, oh, kale, I don't like kale.
I love the concept that play is kale for adults.
Actually, it really makes sense now that I think about it, because so many people I've talked to individually, in my neighborhood, friends, whomever, people who know me well and people who I enjoy, and I say I'm building a body of research on play, and they say, oh, I don't play. It's like that fast, and I'll probe. Say, what do you mean you don't play? I don't have time for that, and it's frivolous. There's no space for that in my world, or I don't know how. I don't know how to play. There's a lot of resistance to the concept for many adults, not all, obviously, certainly not you. Yeah.
Well, I like to think of myself as a playful person. I suspect it is a word people would use about me, and yet I know I fall prey to this rather thoroughly. The idea that, oh, well, okay, here's playtime, and here's when we're going to get stuff done. Here's when the important stuff's happening. And if I get through all of my important stuff, I can have a Sesame Street dance party with the 2-year-old.
Right. Meanwhile, what's really cool about play, a great example, is that in having the Sesame Street dance party with your 2-year-old, you may have an idea for something that's applicable someplace else. And that's one of the cool things about play. We hear all the research on creativity suggests that often if you have a problem in front of you, creativity and problem solving, if you have a problem in front of you, it's good to walk away and do completely unrelated things, particularly if they're more leisure or relaxing or physical in nature. And then an idea comes to you. And that's because you're engaging other parts of your brain and your body in different ways, not necessarily new ways, but different ways. And the neuropsychology of that is that the neuroscience, I should say, is that your brain, it uses different parts of your brain and you get ideas.
It's one of the duh moments, but also like, oh yeah, why didn't I think of it that way?
Yeah, so have those Sesame Street dance parties. When you, in fact, consider some variation. If you, I don't know how open your office environment is, but next time you're really trying to tackle a problem, see what happens if you give yourself 5 minutes of unbridled Sesame Street action, or whatever would make sense to you at that time. It really does. The neuroscience of it suggests that that is one way for us to be expansive and to find new approaches to old problems.
The kind of energy that I'm getting from these concepts that really is tied up in that word expansive that you just used.
Yeah.
And so play is very much about opening up space in your head, in, the sense of safety amongst people, and just like there's a comfort, like a comfortableness that's available there that I think a lot of us don't get access to in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly the possibility of that. And for some people, it doesn't, it comes naturally to you and I. But for some people, it really doesn't. And so when you bring play into a workplace or any kind of a group setting, it's really important to be sensitive to the fact that everybody's got a different capacity for play and everybody's got a different play edge. Because, have you ever had one of those situations, the retreat, the forced fun at work? Have you ever participated in one of those?
I've inflicted it before.
Oh, have you?
I have.
Okay. what have you noticed about those?
There's like the little group of people over here who have totally bought in, who are like, I have been waiting for somebody to hand me some Play-Doh and some straws, and this is everything I've ever wanted. You've got the people who are like, I'm not alarmed, but I'm also confused.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are just checked out with, this is a waste of my time.
Right.
And then a few people over all the way on the other side of the room who are like, this is making me like personally uncomfortable.
Right. It can be scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that's important to for any of you out there considering trying this at home or at work, bear in mind that everybody's in a different place. And if we go back to the idea that really there needs to be a certain amount of safety present
Mm-hmm.
to actually engage in meaningful play.
You kind of have to,
force
it's almost like a muscle. You have to work up to it.
Sure.
As a
and
group,
some people,
to get in sync.
right. Some people are going to be willing to put on the ice skates and get out on the ice, but no matter how many times they go out there, they're never going to become a great skater.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot do a twirl, or that's not what they're called, certainly. But yeah, so it is kind of a muscle, and some people simply have their capacity for it, you know?
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking back to one of the first things you talked about, which was that loop of play. Like you do a little bit of play, it creates a bit of safety, and which allows you to do a little bit more play with a group. That creates a little bit more safety. And so even if, and when, because it'll be when, people are able to engage in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
over that iterative process, it'll become a safer place. So the way they're playing is more of their own play.
In theory, yeah. In theory.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is if you start out with a group of people, let's make it at your office, and you want to do some kind of an activity with them that is playful in nature, so that whether that might be an improv game of some kind, or it might be there's drawing exercises, or it might be ask everybody to build a rodeo clown out of pencils, whatever it may be. And so what's going to happen is there's going to be some trepidation, but if there's an opportunity for people to let down their guard just enough to say, I'm worried about looking dorky,
Mm-hmm.
then everybody's going to know, me too. And there's going to be a certain level of connection and normalizing that happens that gives people a space to relax just enough to free themselves up to not worry about the judgment piece. And this is supposed to be the idea behind brainstorming, by the way.
Mm.
And then you're right. What happens is then people engage, hopefully really engage. And when children are truly engaged in play,
Mm-hmm.
like truly engaged in play. And the opportunity for adults is if we can engage in play, we can just get out of our own way and not worry about the outcome. And when that happens, then indeed there is that expansion that you talked about, and new ideas do pop up. Sometimes you don't even know the applicability or the usefulness for months to come.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're willing to simply allow them to be, then a lot of times really useful ideas come out of play activities. And then what happens is everybody goes, oh, okay, this isn't just hooey.
Mm-hmm.
This was a positive experience, so let's do some more. Yeah. So, and what was the word you used for that? Amplification.
There we go.
Yeah, it is an iterative process. In theory, it can build on itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's my hope, anyway. And in doing that, people can start to see the applicability to their work lives, whether it's simply better functioning with their colleagues or their team members,
Mm-hmm.
or actual production of new ideas, or who knows what else, then people are gonna, I'm having such a random thought. Never mind. Go there. I was going to pull in a movie reference, and I'm not going to do it because I'll just derail the whole conversation. But people are going to taste for it, and they're going to want more of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the place that you're in right now, it seems like, with all of this, is very much in that expansive space already, and I can't wait to see what's coming next.
Me too. That's I'm loving all the research I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a museum of play in Rochester, New York, where I often go. I'm looking forward to going there.
Nice.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what's next too.
So, what do you want to leave us with today about play?
Exploration is the word that comes to mind for me.
Mm-hmm.
Play at its core almost always involves some form of exploration, exploring a relationship, exploring a belief,
Mm-hmm.
exploring what we're capable of. I mean, kids, right? That's what they're all about. They're constantly testing, pushing the boundaries. And
Mm-hmm.
what happens if I go down the slide on my head? Hey, that didn't work out so great. Whatever. What happens if I go down on one knee? For adults, it might look a little different, but it's the same concept. Exploration is fundamental to play. And for anybody out there who's got their arms crossed and thinking, oh, this is hooey,
Mm-hmm.
well, and for everybody else as well, I invite you to explore what play means for you. Where are there opportunities in your life to bring in a little bit of play? What would happen if you just tried it out, even if you didn't have a firm agenda for how it was going to benefit you in some way,
Mm-hmm.
which of course is where I always want to go. It's like, well, what's my rationale for this activity? Be willing to explore what your play edge is and how you might derive some fulfillment from trying a little play of some kind. Coloring book, for God's sake. It doesn't have to be interactive. It could be individual.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. That's what I want to leave you with today is consider exploring play in your world. Play with your kids. Play with your friends. Whatever. Play with yourself. That doesn't sound right.
On that note,
Yes.
I know this isn't the last time we'll be seeing you here. And I know that there's some opportunities for you to be seen out in the world. So where are you going to be?
I am speaking about play in the workplace a couple times, as of right now, just a couple times this year. I'll be speaking at a conference in DC next week. It's a membership organization, Inside NGO. So if any of you are attending the Inside NGO conference, I'll be speaking on Wednesday. Come check it out. And I will be speaking in September, late September, also at the Grow Yourself DC conference. I think that's what it's called. In late September, yeah. It's put on by MindSpring DC, and I'm guessing you're going to give
There will be a link in the
description.
description.
Anybody is welcome to attend that. It promises to be a really good conference. I'm one of many wonderful speakers. So, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Well, thank you so much for being found here today with me. And I look forward to seeing you again in this space as well as other playful spaces.
Yeah, can I come play Verbal Transform with you sometime?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
We'll have to do some tag team interviewing, I suspect.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Well, you and everybody else out there, have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.